Hello, good evening. Welcome to North West Tonight with Roger Johnson. Our top story. A report finds that chances to stop the Southport killer were missed by the government's counter-terrorism programme. Its author says a blizzard of initiatives following the stabbings may help avoid future atrocities. Also tonight, Susan died after a mistake by a physician associate. Her family welcomes national changes to the role. As the region's drought continues, part of the Manchester Ship Canal is forced to close. As day trips drop by nearly 20%, tourism bosses in the Lake District call for more visitors. And a Matcham masterpiece, the Manx Theatre, designed by one of the country's great architects, celebrates its 125th birthday.
And it's been a fine and dry day with a fair deal of sunshine, something a bit wetter for you tomorrow though. Join me at the end of the programme. I'll have the full forecast for you.
Now, the PREVENT programme is supposed to do just that, to stop violent terrorist attacks. But a report today says that in the case of the Southport killer, Axel Rudikabana, it failed. He murdered, of course, 3 girls and wounded 10 other people last July. But he'd been referred to PREVENT several times because of his interest in extreme violence, but no action was taken. Our Merseyside reporter Andy Gill's here in the studio. Andy, you can explain a bit more about this.
That's right, Roger. Today's report is about a government programme called PREVENT. It's designed to spot people who may be radicalised and turn them away from terrorism. Between 2019 and 2021, teachers referred Rudikabana to PREVENT 3 times. But on each occasion, the local PREVENT panel, headed by police, rejected his case. That was because, although he had attacked a pupil at his former school and was obsessed by violence online, he didn't have a religious, political or other ideology guiding him. But the author of today's report says that shouldn't have stopped PREVENT taking him on.
Does that mean that PREVENT should have had nothing to do with him? Well, no, in my view it doesn't, because there was already guidance, admittedly only a few months before he was first referred to PREVENT, saying that if people had these so-called mixed, unclear or unstable ideologies, or indeed if they were obsessed with school massacres, which was certainly one of his interests, they very much were eligible for PREVENT.
Lord Anderson says in Rudikabana's case, the PREVENT system failed. He hasn't criticised individuals because the Southport public inquiry will take evidence on that. But he says it's very, very regrettable that PREVENT had a chance to intervene with Rudikabana and didn't take it.
There was an opportunity, and the opportunity was not taken. Would it have made a difference? Nobody knows. He was 13 or 14 at the time of the referrals. He didn't strike until very shortly before his 18th birthday, and an awful lot of things happen in a young person's life between those times. But he should have been given the chance, at least, to be referred on to what they call a channel panel, to a multi-agency panel, that had the power to give him an intervention provider or a mentor.
Tonight, the lawyers representing the families of the girls who died said Lord Anderson is right that lessons must be learned, and we call upon the government and authorities to ensure they do more than simply paying lip service. The Home Office says it'll accept Lord Anderson's recommendations in full, including that PREVENT should do more to stop people being radicalised online and that it should work more closely with other safeguarding agencies. Roger.
Andy, thank you very much. Andy Gill there. Now, 2 years ago today, Susan Pollitt died in hospital in Oldham. An inquest into her death called for an urgent review into the role of physician associates. They were introduced in 2003 to support the work of doctors. Now, in Susan's case, an associate mistakenly left a drain in her abdomen for too long. Today, her family welcomed a report which recommends changes to the role of physician associates. Here's our health correspondent, Jill Dummigan.
2 years ago today, Roy Pollitt lost his wife, Kate, his daughter, her mum.
She was just the best mum, really. She just lived for us. It lived for us all, really.
Susan Pollitt died after an abdominal drain was left in her body for 15 hours longer than it should have been. The hospital's own investigation found she probably would have survived if it had been removed earlier. She was being treated by a physician associate.
I've always said we don't blame the PA. Yes, he made mistakes, but would he have made those mistakes had he been supervised?
In Susan's case, the coroner was so concerned about the lack of clarity over the physician associate role, she wrote to the government calling for action. Today's report proposes a name change to physicians' assistants, uniforms and badges which clearly distinguish them from doctors. They won't be able to diagnose or see new patients in GP surgeries or A&Es, and they'll need 2 years hospital experience to work in a GP surgery. That's in addition to the 2 years of medical training they already have. The report's author hopes this will give the public faith both in their treatment and in physician associates.
If the recommendations are adopted, they should be very confident that they're seeing PAs, that PAs have had a thorough training to do what they are then doing in the health service, and that they're great communicators, they're great at providing health advice, and they should be entirely confident.
Susan Pollitt's family say they welcome the proposals and a future role for physician associates.
If they have got the right support and they're helping the NHS, then yes, we 100% back them.
As long as there is a definite delineation of the responsibilities of that role.
The government will now decide when and if to make the changes. Jill Dummigan, BBC North West Tonight, Oldham.
An elderly couple are critically ill tonight after a suspected arson attack on their home in St Helens. A man in his 70s and a woman in her 80s were rescued from the house in the early hours of yesterday. Police say an initial investigation suggests that the fire was started deliberately. Cheshire and Warrington have called for a delay to their first election for a Metro Mayor, which is set to take place in May next year. Leaders in 3 council areas have followed a similar request from Cumbria last week to put the vote back to 2027 to coincide with local elections. The driver of a Mercedes who caused a serious collision in Chester in April, where a tractor collided with the front of homes, has avoided a prison sentence. 52-year-old Matthew Crumpsty admitted drug driving but was given a 12-month community order. The 2-week archaeological dig has unearthed some centuries-old treasures, with school children helping out. They've found evidence of 17th, 18th and 19th century material in Rochdale as part of the wider lottery-supported restoration of the area behind the town hall.
Down at the base, we have a 19th century way station. In the middle here behind me, we have the footings for 17th century cottages, and up top we have 18th century materials. So it really does highlight that. And as we work our way down, we're hoping and expecting that we might find some medieval stuff, which is the period we don't have a great record trail for.
Now, we're going to have the weather forecast with Molly at the end of the programme. We talk about the weather on this programme quite a lot, don't we? We live in an interesting part of the world. We had a fair old deluge of rain yesterday as well, but that has done little to help the water levels in our reservoirs and canals because, as you know, the northwest is still technically in a period of drought. We've had lots of warm, dry weather as well, particularly in the spring. The region's canal network is now restricting the use of locks to help conserve water, and part of the Manchester Ship Canal has been closed for the past couple of days because the water level there is so low. Let's get more from Zoe Tosh. She is beside the Manchester Ship Canal at Barton Locks for us tonight. And Zoe, that is one of the affected areas.
It is, Roger, and like you mentioned, we've seen a lot of extreme weather recently. We've had the driest spring on record in over 100 years, and that's put a lot of strain on the canal network with low river levels and reservoirs failing. Where I'm stood right now is the Manchester Ship Canal. You can see behind me that water levels here have returned to somewhat normal, but these pictures show over the last few days that the water levels were extremely low. You can almost see the bottom of the riverbanks there. This area between Barton Docks has been closed since Monday. It's been closed to boat traffic besides work vessels owned by the ship company, and that was an alert sent out by the operator Peel Ports. We have been told by them in the last few hours that the water levels have returned to normal, but those closures are still in place and are expected to be opened back up again for boat traffic later today. In other areas of the northwest, canals have still remained open, but they've had suspensions in place, particularly at some of the lock points.
Zoe, there have been a few days of rain, as I mentioned, of late, amid all of the sunshine that we have had, but those drops of water that we have seen just haven't been enough.
Yeah, and you know, like I said, it's the driest spring that we've seen, and these extreme weather conditions, June itself, if we look at the data, June was wetter than it usually is, but that's been matched with high temperatures and heat waves, especially over the rest of June and July. We've heard from data that the reservoir levels, they dropped down to 65% yesterday, and despite that heavy rainfall that we did see, those have fallen again today to 63.2%. We are expected to see a little bit more rain in the rest of July, specifically towards the end of the month, but what we do need to see is more prolonged periods of rain, several weeks of rain, rather than those heavy downpours. Areas like here, the canal and the reservoirs, they are being monitored daily, and we'll expect to see what happens there. And hopefully, with a bit more rain coming in the next coming weeks, we might see levels return to a bit more normal and these restrictions might be lifted.
Zoe, thank you very much. Zoe Toes there for us live by the Manchester Ship Canal. Now, we often look at the issue of tourism in some parts of the Lake District, the issue of over-tourism, but the bigger picture, it seems, is somewhat different, and maybe the weather's having a factor on things this year for sure, but an analysis of tourism trends over the last 5 years has shown a drop of nearly 20% in day trippers and a fall in the numbers staying in hotels. Now, Cumbria Tourism says that nearly 75,000 jobs rely on the tourist industry there, as Phil Chapman reports.
As a ferry captain on Windermere, Mark has perhaps one of the best vantage points to gauge the health of the tourism industry here. The most recent official figures for the region's multi-billion-pound tourism economy reveal a fairly steep downturn in visitors since COVID times, and Mark can see it in his passenger numbers.
Well, we've noticed since COVID the numbers are definitely down. We're hoping that they're going to start creeping up again. It's a mixture of people travelling abroad. Maybe the costs have gone up in the lakes since COVID. Less money available. Before COVID, I remember there used to be queues like for 40 minutes or an hour to get on the ferry. And now it's pretty rare we leave anyone behind. If we do, it's only 1 or 2 vehicles.
When we look at it across the year and across the county, the pattern is showing that we've seen a small drop in visitor numbers, visitor days, and visitor value during 2024. But when we look at the longer term trends, since 2019, so just before COVID, we can see that we've got an 18% drop in terms of visitors to the county.
Well, the latest data reveals that tourism in Cumbria contributed £4.6 billion to the region's economy last year, with accommodation making up 15% of that.
Some businesses have done particularly well post-COVID, others have had challenges. I think overall the industry is had some outside challenges beyond just the Lake District. I think it's not a local issue. Inflation, cost of living increase. We are in a market where people are. It's a discretionary spend. People choose to come here, and we need to be mindful of that because everybody's got a little bit less money in their pocket at the moment.
Everyone visiting the lakes expects changeable weather as part of the experience, but it's changes in footfall causing worries here in Hawkshead, even at places with previous royal shoppers.
During COVID, people were sort of pushing the smaller independent producers and saying go and support them. And what I would say is appeal to people really, don't forget us. When you're doing your shopping and when you're doing your gift buying and things, look at your local independent first and see if you can put your money there rather than to a big multinational, because it goes so far.
So we're visiting from Canada, so we'll always come back here. But yeah, there seems to be lots of locals around rather than people. Heard lots of Scottish accents rather than many foreign accents, that's for sure. So you never know.
We kind of were expecting Windermere to be really, really busy and Hawkshead to be really busy today, but it's actually really quiet, which I quite like, being from the city. But you do wonder like what impact that is having on local businesses and stuff.
Over the years, people always used to say, we've been to Hawkshead, but we can't get in the car park, it's full. And that's not the case anymore, so we're just inviting them to come back.
Phil Chapman, BBC North West Tonight, in Cumbria.
It's an interesting issue, isn't it? We often talk about the problems of tourism, too many people in the lake, so interesting to hear the other side of it. Now, we're going to stay in a rural setting for our next story tonight because campaigners are vowing to fight plans for England's largest onshore wind farm on the moors above Rochdale. It's set to be built close to the existing Scout Moor wind farm, and it's said it will generate enough electricity to power 100,000 homes each year. But the protesters who are against it claim that the damage to the landscape outweighs any gains from clean energy. Richard Stead has this report for us.
Scoutmoor 2 is set to cost £140 million and would be the largest onshore wind farm in England.
I've been walking these moors since I was a lad. I used to go up with my dad. We used to go catching rabbits and stuff. It means everything to me. That's the reason why I've lived around here all my life. I can get on the moors whenever I want. I've had a hard week, and this is one place I can get up and have solitude.
This is Rewley Moor, on the hills above Rochdale. There are plans for the country's largest onshore wind farm here. It would involve 18 turbines, each one higher than Blackpool Tower.
We take our responsibility environmentally very seriously and completely understand that there will be concern to the height of the turbines. The advantage of larger machines is you need less of them and they're more efficient. They move much more slower compared to some of the smaller machines that you see in the landscape.
But it's not just the visual impact of the turbines that campaigners are worried about.
It feels like it's more driven by financial motivation than it is about actually doing the right thing for the climate. You know, there's consequences here, there's peat, there's natural habitat, the things that are really protecting the environment, and to destroy them, the net harm is bad. It's bad for us. It'll be devastating.
You've got far away in the distance, pretty little white things spinning around, lovely, fantastic. You get close up, you've got the access roads, you've got the turbine bases themselves, 25 metres across. You've got the whoosh of the actual turbine whizzing round. People say they're quiet and it's not a problem, but when you get up to them, that peace and solitude has vanished.
Scoutmoor 1 was built almost 20 years ago. Opponents included the TV presenter and environmental campaigner David Bellamy.
Why spoil some most beautiful parts? That is the lung for this part of out of Manchester.
Onshore wind farms were effectively banned by the Conservative government in 2015. That's now been lifted, though, as part of Labour's ambitions for achieving clean energy by 2030. That means phasing out gas-fired power stations, and it will also be easier to get planning approval for projects like Scoutmoor 2.
Scoutmoor is one of the first wind farms to come forward after that change in policy, and I think if we have any chance of meeting that very ambitious target, it's very important that wind farms such as Scoutmoor can come forward and make a big contribution to that net zero target.
Plans for Scoutmoor 2 are set to be submitted in the next few weeks. The turbines could begin producing electricity within 5 years. Richard Stead, BBC North West Tonight.
Do you know, I think I remember the night that report with David Bellamy was on. I didn't realise it was so long ago, back in 2014. Interesting to hear your thoughts. There's a real balance, isn't there, between the need for clean energy versus the protecting the landscape. But then if we're going to put turbines somewhere, they've got to go somewhere, haven't they? nwt@bbc.co.uk is the email address if you want to get in touch. Here are some of the other stories that people are reading tonight from BBC News. And an iconic Liverpool market at the centre of its community for 185 years is going to get an upgrade, £5 million they're spending on it. After 3 years in hospital, 16-year-old Daniel Flemon is set to return home. He's up in Lancashire. His home has been improved, transformed by the BBC's DIY SOS. And Emma Gibbs is a music photographer. She lives near Heaton Park. She wasn't going to go to snap the Oasis gigs. However, she couldn't resist all the scenes of joy which filled the streets outside her home. You can read more bbc.co.uk/local news, or as I always say, you can download it, put it on your phone, on your tablet, and take a look on the BBC News app. We've had a fair bit of rural life in the programme tonight, haven't we? And here's another one, because the North West has a new nature reserve. It's not in the wilds of Cumbria or the green fields of Cheshire. It is in one of our industrial heartlands, right next to the M62 between Manchester and Liverpool. Part of it, in fact, is on the site of a former World War II bomb factory, as Kelly Foran has been finding out.
The area is the size of 25 Trafford centres. It's 10,000 years in the making. A new National Nature Reserve. 11 different sites on many of our doorsteps, nestled between Salford, Warrington and Wigan, are being joined together to what's being called the Rainforest of the North.
For that chance to be out in a wild space in an urbanised area
to just feel part of nature and explore, seeing dragonflies, rare species, all the butterflies, all the rare plants, absolutely essential.
And what a place to call your office.
It's amazing, yeah. People, when I walk along and say, I'm just going down to the office, and they take a look, they think, I'm slightly jealous of that, yeah. Because that's developing okay, isn't it?
But it's so much more than just a pretty place. Almost all of England's peatlands are damaged, dried out or degraded. Here they've been working to restore an entire landscape that will help fight against climate change by soaking up and locking in carbon.
So this habitat around us here is lowland raised bog, and in terms of UK habitats, that's kind of the superhero habitat in terms of carbon storage. And you can see at the side of us here, we've got the lawns of sphagnum moss. That's future peat in the process of forming.
Underneath our feet is lots and lots of deep peat, which is acquiring and soaking up lots of carbon, helping us mitigate against climate change. Really helps in the fight against drought and also against flood. So, great for water retention. So yeah, lots of ecosystem benefits, natural capital benefits.
During World War II, 30,000 people worked at a bomb-filling factory in the area. The bombs were tested here. Since then, it's become one of the largest derelict sites in Europe.
This area has been so significant internationally for so many reasons. It was the leader in the Industrial Revolution, and now we're getting into the point where this place is a leader in terms of the industrial nature recovery, the recovery of wildlife as a consequence of those years of change.
This is somewhere where people can enjoy wildlife and nature can thrive for years to come. Kelly Foran, BBC North West Tonight in Warrington.
It's very tranquil, doesn't it? Right, we've got the weather with Molly in just a moment, but not before. We've been off to the theatre, a spectacular one by the seaside as well. It's in the Isle of Man, celebrating its 125th anniversary today. It's the Gaiety Theatre. It's in Douglas, and it was renowned by it was designed by the renowned English architect Frank Matcham. It opened its doors on the 16th of July, 1900. A nice round number, but things could have been very different because 50-odd years ago, the theatre was just days away from demolition back in the 1970s, almost 50 years ago. Ashley Tracy has this report.
It's a performance space that's been at the heart of the Manx community for 125 years, where countless musicals, comedians and local performers have taken to the stage.
We've done ice shows on here, we've done circuses, kids shows with like Christine Wild with 300 or 400 kids on stage to one man standing at the front telling stories for 3 hours like Ken Dodd or John Bishop.
Its ornate design, which largely resembles what theatregoers would have experienced in the early 20th century, was created by architect Frank Matcham. He's a man known for his work on the London Palladium, Blackpool Grand and Buxton Opera House, amongst others. Opening night at the Gaiety Theatre in Douglas was on the 16th of July 1900, but by the 1960s it had become run down. The Manx government stepped in to buy the theatre, saving it from closure in 1971.
There are sad stories of the wrecking ball turning up outside and people chaining themselves to the railings, saying no. And I think without acts like that and without appeals and without sort of publicity about what a gem we have behind all the decay, it's possible the theatre could have been lost.
A 10-year programme saw the extensive restoration of the space in the 1990s.
For generations, people have walked through those doors to be entertained by the performers treading the boards of the Gaiety.
We have people coming here for their first ever theatre show at 4, but also coming here at 94 and seeing another theatre show. We are here for a lifetime of engagement as a home for those stories, a home for those people, and it's incredibly important that we exist. The imagination that happens here, the stories that are housed in these walls are incredible, and people are still engaging with those week on week, so how special to be able to do that.
It's hoped with the support of an army of dedicated volunteers and government funding, shows will go on at the Gaiety Theatre for many more years to come. Ashley Tracy, BBC North West Tonight in Douglas.
Lots of people getting in touch tonight about the tourism in the Lake District. Richard on X says the reducing tourism there. Is that maybe people listening to the messaging over the years about there being too many tourists in the lakes? And somebody on emailing Robert saying it's all we've heard a lot about the problems for locals being able to stay in the lakes, and that's an issue that still hasn't gone away. Also, on the issue of David Bellamy, I thought I remembered that report, and I did. It was in 2015. But actually, it was a piece from an original piece when David Bellamy visited in 2006. So they've been talking about that for an awfully long time. That's the issue of the Scoutmoor wind farm. Of course, a wind farm needs the wind to blow. Molly, is the wind blowing?
I'll have more details in a moment. You just wait on. So, yeah, in terms of today, the wind hasn't been blowing because it has been really settled out there. We've had settled, sunny conditions a lot of the time. You can see in Eccleston in Lancashire there. But there was some cloud around to start the day. But for many of us, brightening and highs of 22 degrees Celsius in more southern parts of the northwest. Thank you very much for sending your photos in. So a bit of a different story tomorrow. A cloudier and drizzly start to the day. It will start to improve as we head into the late afternoon and the evening in terms of sunshine, but we could see a few showers triggered. But in terms of temperature, if anything, it's getting warmer. It's going to feel a bit muggy as we head into tomorrow. We have a warm front coming in, but the majority of the rain coming at the weekend as low pressure takes charge, and there is a risk of thunder as well. Now, if you're off to Oasis at Heaton Park tonight, you're going to see some late evening sunshine and a lot of dry weather. You won't need your parka unless you're out until the early hours. Temperatures dropping to around 11 degrees Celsius. So tomorrow it is going to be a pretty drizzly grey start to the day. That cloud will start to break though, and we will see some spells of sunshine, but some showers being triggered there. Highs of 24 degrees Celsius and a soft southerly wind. So feeling warm over the next couple of days actually into Friday. In terms of brightness, much better day on Friday with some decent spells. The odd shower out there though, but that's going to be the first half of the day. Highs of 25 degrees Celsius. And then it's at the weekend where things turn a bit cooler and there is the risk of thunderstorms on both Saturday and Sunday. But you can see it is going to continue to be unsettled as we head into the rest of the week, into the next... I can't get my words out like you, Roger. What is happening today?
I've had one of those nights, Molly. I don't know what's been going on.
I think we need to sleep.
Somebody's suggesting on the issue of wind farms. He's in Blackpool, but he says just get on with it and put them up there if you need them in the countryside. You're from Blackpool.
I am from Blackpool.
Pop them on the top of Blackpool Tower.
That's an idea, isn't it?
Blow like crazy, wouldn't it? Maybe not. And someone else, Christine, talking about why, when we live by the coast, haven't we got tidal power?
Yeah.
We're talking about that in the Mersey. Who knows? Thank you for watching, as always. Have a lovely evening.